Welcome, the anointed ones. The ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Steve Jobs. But let's be real. Before they call you a genius, they'll call you a lunatic. That's the price of seeing a vision nobody else can. At first, your words sound like a wild conspiracy theory at a family dinner. Everyone politely laughs and changes the subject. But when your crazy talk manifests right in front of their disbelieving eyes, silence becomes their new language. Here's a fun fact. In 1903, experts said flying machines were scientifically impossible. The Wright brothers didn't get the memo, and thank God they didn't, or you'd still be crossing continents by boat. So if they've been calling you delusional, out of touch, or even outright insane, buckle up. History has a funny way of proving that the line between madness and brilliance is just a manifestation waiting to happen. And guess what? You're next in line. Number 1. The curse of early vision. People didn't call you crazy because your ideas were wrong. They called you crazy because you were living in a future they couldn't see yet. That's the real curse of having vision. While they were busy following rules designed for yesterday, you were mapping out tomorrow. You saw patterns forming before they made sense to anyone else. You made decisions based on things that hadn't happened yet, and that scared them. The truth is, most people need proof before they believe something is possible. They need to see it, touch it, and watch someone else succeed first. But visionaries, they don't wait for the proof. They trust what they know deep down, even when there's nothing tangible to back it up. That's why you sounded crazy. You were speaking the language of a future that hadn't been translated yet. Being ahead of your time is lonely. It feels like wandering through a world where everyone else is blindfolded, bumping into walls they can't see. But when you try to explain what's coming, they just laugh, or worse, they ignore you entirely. And that hurts. But here's the twist. The very thing they mocked you for is the reason they'll look to you when the dust settles. Because once your vision becomes their reality, suddenly, you're not crazy anymore. You're a genius. That shift is inevitable. The only difference between lunacy and brilliance is time. And when the future you predicted finally arrives, everyone will swear they saw it coming. But you'll know the truth. You lived it first, even when no one believed you. Number 2, society worships proof, not vision. People don't believe in vision, they believe in results. If you walk into a room talking about something that doesn't exist yet, most people will look at you like you're out of your mind. That's because society is addicted to proof. Show them a shiny success story and they'll cheer for you. But tell them about a wild idea that hasn't materialized yet, they'll dismiss you faster than a spam email. It's not that they're incapable of understanding your vision, it's that they're wired to trust what already works, safe, predictable, proven. That's what people cling to. They like blueprints, not blank canvases. The irony is that every major breakthrough starts as a wild, unproven idea. But society conveniently forgets that once those ideas become the norm. Nobody remembers how the first smartphones were mocked as unnecessary toys. Now, people can't survive a dinner without checking theirs. This obsession with proof creates a brutal reality for visionaries. You're forced to build the thing first, succeed wildly, and then they'll believe you were right all along. And they'll act like they were on board from the start. That's the game. But here's the truth they won't admit. Proof doesn't create vision. Vision creates proof. Every world-changing idea looked ridiculous until it didn't. So when they laugh at your ideas or dismiss your crazy talk, remember this. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the discomfort of the unknown. They'll come around when it's safe. But by then, you'll already be on to your next wild idea, and history will repeat itself all over again. Number 3, the fear reflex. It's not you, it's them. When they call you crazy, it's not really about you, it's about them. Your ideas make them uncomfortable because they challenge the world they're used to. People cling to familiarity like a life raft, and when you come along saying things that disrupt their comfortable little bubble, their first instinct is to push back. Mocking you is easier than admitting they're scared of change. It's not that they actually believe your ideas are nonsense. Deep down, a part of them wonders if you might be right, and that terrifies them. If you're right, then everything they thought they knew is up for debate. Their safe, predictable routines, suddenly not so reliable. People hate that feeling. So instead of being curious, they ridicule you. It's a defense mechanism, a way to protect themselves from the fear of being wrong. But here's the thing, their fear isn't your problem. You can't let their insecurities dictate your decisions. Visionaries are wired differently. Where they see uncertainty, you see potential. Where they see risk, you see opportunity. That difference will always make people uncomfortable because it forces them to confront the limits they've put on themselves. Over time, some of them will come around. They'll see your crazy ideas work and pretend they always believed in you. But others will hold on to their fear and keep doubting you, no matter how much proof you give them. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk the same path as you. Your job isn't to convince them. It's to keep pushing forward, even when their fear tries to drag you back. Because at the end of the day, the people who change the world aren't the ones seeking permission. They're the ones brave enough to step into the unknown anyway. Number 4. Manifestation is the ultimate revenge. They laughed when you spoke your dreams out loud. They rolled their eyes when you made bold claims about what was possible. Maybe they even whispered behind your back, labeling you as delusional or out of touch. But here's the beauty of manifestation. It doesn't care about opinions. It doesn't need validation. It only needs your belief and relentless action. And when that belief turns into reality, that's the ultimate revenge, not the petty "I told you so," but the moment when the world is forced to adjust its narrative around your success. Suddenly, the very thing they mocked becomes the blueprint they want to follow. People who doubted you start asking for advice. The ones who wrote you off want to know your secret. But the truth is, there was no secret. It was always about your willingness to speak your vision into existence and back it up with action, no matter how foolish it seemed at the time. While they waited for guarantees and proof, you were out there building your future from scratch. Manifestation doesn't just prove your critics wrong, it shatters the limits they placed on what's possible. It forces people to confront the uncomfortable truth that they underestimated you, and maybe even themselves. That's why it's the ultimate revenge. Because it's not just about being right, it's about redefining what's possible in front of their eyes and leaving them speechless. And the best part? By the time they realize what just happened, you're already on to your next lunatic idea, ready to rewrite the rules all over again. Number 5. Cognitive dissonance in real time. When your vision becomes reality, something fascinating happens to the people who doubted you. They're hit with a mental collision. Everything they believed to be true no longer makes sense. They told themselves the world was predictable, that bold ideas were foolish, and that sticking to the status quo was the safest path. But now, your so-called nonsense is standing right in front of them, undeniable and real. And that's when cognitive dissonance kicks in. Skeptics have two choices when confronted with a truth that challenges their beliefs: admit they were wrong or fight tooth and nail to protect their old narrative. Most people choose the latter. They'll twist logic, downplay your success, or even claim it was just luck. Why? Because admitting you were right means they have to confront their own limitations, the fear, doubt, and small thinking that kept them from seeing what you saw. It's a strange thing to witness. On the outside, they might act indifferent or even dismissive, but internally, their minds are scrambling to make sense of what just happened. They start questioning everything. If this crazy idea worked, what else have I been wrong about? That's a terrifying thought for someone who's built their entire identity on playing it safe. But here's the truth they can't escape. The world has never been predictable. Innovation has always looked crazy until it became the new normal. They can fight it all they want, but reality doesn't bend to comfort zones. Your vision proved that. And while they're busy processing their existential crisis, you've already moved on, living proof that the only constant in this world is change, whether they're ready for it or not. Number 6. Loneliness is the rite of passage. Loneliness isn't a punishment. It's the initiation every visionary must endure. When your ideas push beyond the limits of conventional thinking, people naturally distance themselves. Not because they hate you, but because they simply can't relate. You've stepped off the well-worn path, and that's terrifying to those who need the comfort of familiarity. At first, the isolation stings. You want people to see what you see, to understand why you're willing to risk everything for an idea that only exists in your mind. But they can't. So they pull away, shake their heads, or offer polite encouragement that drips with disbelief. And there you are, alone in the wilderness, doubting whether you've lost your mind. But here's the twist. The wilderness is where miracles are born. It strips away the noise, the opinions, and the need for applause. In that solitude, you learn to trust yourself. You learn to find strength in your vision, even when there's no one around to validate it. That's where the real transformation happens. And when you finally emerge from that exile, carrying the manifestation of what they once mocked, the world suddenly pays attention. But by then, their approval doesn't matter. You've already built a foundation on something stronger, self-belief forged in isolation. So, if you find yourself in that lonely place, understand this: it's not a punishment, it's your rite of passage. It's where visionaries are forged, where doubt dies, and where you learn that the only validation you ever needed was your own. And when the world finally catches up, you'll smile, because you won the battle in the wilderness long before they even noticed you were gone. Number 7, insults, the currency of the visionless. When people hurl insults at you for your ideas, it's not because you're wrong, it's because you've hit a nerve. You've challenged the fragile ecosystem they've built around their comfortable, predictable lives. People fear what forces them to question their own limitations, and rather than confront that discomfort, they lash out at the person who dared to think differently. That person is you. Mockery is the cheapest currency of the visionless. It costs them nothing to laugh at your dreams or label you as delusional. But here's the truth. Every insult is a subconscious admission that you're onto something they don't understand, and understanding it would require them to grow, to expand their thinking, and to take risks they're too afraid to face. Deep down, they're unsettled by your courage. You had the audacity to step out of line, to challenge rules they've blindly followed their entire lives. That makes them nervous because if you succeed, it forces them to confront a bitter truth, that their limitations were never real, they were self-imposed, and that's a hard pill to swallow. But here's where it gets interesting. Insults are a sign that you're on the right path. The louder they get, the closer you are to breaking through. No one bothers tearing down mediocrity. They attack what threatens to change the game. So let them mock, let them whisper. Their ridicule is just a smokescreen for their fear. And when your crazy idea becomes the thing they can't live without, those insults will disappear faster than they ever arrived. Because deep down, they know the truth. You were never the problem. You were just proof that their world was too small. Number 8. Too soon is just society's safety net. When they say it's too soon for that idea, what they really mean is, I'm not ready to understand it. Society uses the concept of too soon as a safety net to protect itself from the discomfort of change. But here's the paradox. Innovation is never perfectly timed for the present. It's designed for the future. If your ideas feel comfortable and universally accepted, then guess what? They're already outdated. The world doesn't move forward by waiting for permission. Trailblazers disrupt, provoke, and push the boundaries long before society feels ready. Think about it. Social media was dismissed as a teenage fad until it reshaped communication, business, and politics. Electric cars were mocked as impractical fantasies, and now entire nations are racing to adopt them. Every transformative idea looked out of place until the world caught up. The too soon argument is just society's way of clinging to what's familiar. People fear the unknown because it forces them to rethink their habits, beliefs, and assumptions. They label innovation as premature because accepting it would require them to adapt faster than they're comfortable with. But adaptation is inevitable. The only question is whether you lead it or get dragged along by it. So when they tell you it's too soon, smile. You're already operating in a world they haven't imagined yet. Your timing isn't premature. It's perfect for the future that's about to unfold. And by the time they finally declare that the world is ready, You'll be far ahead, busy creating the next too-soon idea that will redefine everything all over again. Number 9. Visionaries don't predict the future, they build it. Visionaries aren't in the business of predicting the future, they're too busy building it. While others are looking for signs and waiting for a moment of cosmic alignment, visionaries roll up their sleeves and start creating what doesn't yet exist. They don't sit back and hope for the future to unfold. They forge it with every decision, every step, and every action they take. The difference between a dreamer and a visionary is that one waits for things to happen, while the other makes them happen. The universe doesn't just grant wishes, it responds to creation. Visionaries know this. They understand that the future doesn't come to you because you imagined it. It comes because you put the work in to make it real. Every great invention, every groundbreaking idea started as a seed planted by someone who dared to ask, why not? Instead of guessing what will happen, they shaped it, tested it, and turned it into something tangible. When they said we'd have electric cars or a personal computer in every home, it wasn't a prediction, it was a conviction that the world could be different, and they were going to be the ones to build it. So forget about trying to predict what's next. The true visionary knows that the future isn't waiting for your forecast. It's waiting for your blueprint. And while everyone else is trying to read the stars, you're down here on Earth constructing a reality that others will one day call inevitable. You're not waiting for things to unfold. You're making them unfold, one innovation at a time. Number 10. The energy shift, from laughter to awe. At first they laugh. It's a natural reaction to anything they can't immediately understand or accept. Your ideas are too big, too bold, or too outlandish for their limited worldview. So they mock you, dismiss you as crazy, or write you off as someone with an unrealistic vision. It's a defense mechanism. The easiest way to cope with the discomfort of something unfamiliar is to belittle it. But then something shifts. The mockery turns into curiosity. As your vision starts to materialize, they begin to take a second look. They see that what you're doing isn't just some wild fantasy. It's real, it's happening, and it's gaining traction. Suddenly your lunacy becomes something worth studying. They start paying attention to the details they once ignored, trying to decode how you pulled off what they thought was impossible. And the final act in this drama? Imitation. Once you've shown them that your ideas work, once you've demonstrated that they are not only valid, but powerful, the same people who laughed at you start copying your moves. They integrate your concepts, your methods, and even your words into their own work. And here's the kicker. They'll act like they were on your side all along. The applause they once withheld? Now it's all yours, but they'll pretend it was just a matter of time before they recognized your brilliance. It's a cycle as old as time, from laughter to awe, from mockery to imitation. What you once struggled to prove will soon be the very thing everyone else is trying to replicate. And while they ride your coattails, you'll be already onto your next groundbreaking idea, showing them once again that the future was always yours to create. Number 11. Disruptors aren't heroes, they're threats. When your vision materializes and disrupts the status quo, don't expect a parade or a hero's welcome. What you'll get instead is fear. Innovation has a way of threatening those in power because it demands change. And change means that things will no longer operate the way they've always operated. People cling to the comfort of the old, even if it's flawed, because at least it's familiar. When you introduce something new, something that challenges everything they know, you become a threat. Disruptors don't receive accolades because they're not playing by the established rules. They're rewriting the rules, and that unsettles the very systems that have benefited from the old order. The ones in power, the ones with their hands firmly gripping the status quo, will see you as a danger to their control. They'll try to suppress your innovation, discredit your ideas, and dismiss you as a fleeting trend. Why? Because your success means their relevance is at risk. They can't afford to let something new flourish without trying to crush it. Look at any revolutionary idea in history. The people who dared to introduce something groundbreaking were rarely celebrated immediately. They were feared, scrutinized, and often ridiculed. Only when the dust settled and the innovation became undeniable did the world recognize the value of what was introduced. By then, those who fought it were forced to accept it, even if they still resented the change. So when you disrupt the norm, don't expect a hero's reception. Expect resistance. Expect those who benefit from the old way to fear you. But in the end, you'll be the one who changes the game, while they're left holding onto a system that's no longer relevant. Number 12. The price of unorthodoxy. Breaking the mold doesn't come cheap. The price of unorthodoxy is high, and it's paid in rejection, isolation, and ridicule. When you deviate from the expected path, you're not just challenging norms, you're challenging people's comfort zones. Those around you, stuck in their predictable routines, will see you as a threat. Your ideas, your vision, your very existence will feel like a disruption to their sense of control. So, they'll reject you. They'll make you feel like an outsider, as if your unconventional path is a sign of failure before you even start. But here's the thing, the moment you start making waves, that's when the true cost kicks in. The people who once mocked your ideas now turn their backs, choosing conformity over progress. They'll label you as crazy, too ambitious, or unrealistic. Some will even distance themselves from you as if your vision might rub off and make them look foolish. The loneliness sets in because for a time it feels like you're the only one in the room who believes in what you're doing. But when the tide turns, when your unorthodox vision manifests into reality, the narrative changes. The very same people who turn their backs on you will act as if they were your supporters all along. They'll claim they always knew you'd make it, as if they never doubted you for a second. Their rejection morphs into admiration, but it's hollow, because they weren't there when the road was rough. And that's the price of unorthodoxy. It's not just about battling rejection from others. It's about staying true to your vision when the world's silence feels deafening. The reward isn't their approval. It's knowing that, despite it all, you were right. You broke the mold, and now you're the one everyone else is scrambling to follow. Number 13. The truth hurts until it heals. When your vision comes to life, it's not just a personal victory, it's a brutal reflection of everything others were too afraid to believe. Your success isn't just about proving your ideas were right, it's about showing everyone around you that the boundaries they've been living within were self-imposed. The truth of your manifestation hits like a punch to the gut because it forces them to confront their own limitations. The moment they see you living the very thing they once dismissed as impossible, it disrupts everything they thought they knew about what's achievable. But the truth doesn't feel good at first. It stings, and it often brings a rush of guilt, regret, or insecurity. For those who rejected or doubted you, it's a painful reminder of the risks they didn't take, the opportunities they passed up, and the fear that held them back. Seeing your success forces them to look at their own lives and ask themselves, why didn't I believe? Why didn't I take that chance? That's the real disruption, not your success itself, but the uncomfortable truth it reveals. Your manifestation is a mirror, reflecting the unrealized potential in everyone around you. And for many, that reflection isn't easy to face. It exposes the doubts they've carried for years, the opportunities they've missed because they chose comfort over risk. But here's the beauty of it. The truth hurts, yes, but it also heals. It jolts people out of their complacency and forces them to consider new possibilities. Your success doesn't just validate your vision. It serves as a catalyst for change in others, challenging them to break free from their own fears and limiting beliefs. The hurt is temporary, but the healing comes when they finally see the power of believing in something bigger than themselves. And maybe, just maybe, they'll find the courage to create their own reality too. In the end, being a visionary is not about seeking validation or conforming to the expectations of others. It's about having the audacity to see a world that doesn't yet exist and building it, regardless of the skepticism or resistance you face along the way. Your journey won't be easy. It will be filled with laughter, isolation, and rejection. But each challenge is part of the process that strengthens your resolve and sharpens your focus. When your vision finally unfolds, It won't just be a personal triumph. It will be the disruption that forces others to confront their own fears and limitations. And while they might initially mock or dismiss you, it's only a matter of time before they look to you for answers, recognizing that what they once considered impossible is now the new reality. The price of unorthodoxy is steep, but the rewards are immeasurable. You won't just change your life, you'll change the world around you, pushing it forward in ways people never thought possible. So embrace the ridicule, the loneliness, and the doubts, because they are proof that you are on the right path. Keep pushing, keep creating, and keep manifesting the future. The world may not be ready for you now, but it will be, sooner than they ever imagined. If this resonated with you, then it's time to take action. Don't let fear, doubt, or criticism hold you back. If you're ready to create, disrupt, and manifest your own future, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join the movement of those who refuse to accept the world as it is and are ready to shape it into something greater. And hey, don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because the world doesn't need more followers, it needs more creators. If you're committed to manifesting your greatness, let's make this journey together. Drop a comment, hit that like button, and let's ignite this conversation. Your vision matters. Stay bold, stay fearless, and keep creating, because the world is waiting for what only you can build. God bless you. Welcome, the anointed ones. The universe doesn't play games, but if you do, be ready for the consequences. Psychics often serve as messengers between the seen and unseen, unraveling truths that most people aren't prepared to hear. Here's a wild fact. Over 75% of people consult psychics out of curiosity, but what they find often leaves them wide-eyed and shaken. Now imagine this. They thought it would be hilarious to consult a psychic about you, a chosen one, just for laughs. A little joke, a bit of entertainment at your expense. But what happened next? That psychic didn't laugh. Instead, they dropped some revelations that left those same skeptics sweating in disbelief. Suddenly, the joke's on them, and they can't stop shaking. And trust me, this isn't just a story about a psychic reading gone wrong. It's about spiritual tables turning in the most epic way imaginable. Ready to hear what really went down? Number 1, the energetic boomerang effect. What started as a joke quickly turned into something far more serious. They thought it would be funny to consult a psychic about you, to mock your journey, or just satisfy their curiosity. But the universe doesn't take those things lightly. When they put your name out into the spiritual realm, they accidentally activated forces beyond their understanding. Energy is never neutral. What you send out always finds its way back, often in ways you least expect. The psychic, tapping into that unseen world, likely picked up on truths that were undeniable. Suddenly, it wasn't funny anymore. What they thought was a harmless prank became a confrontation with your destiny, one they had no business tampering with. They were expecting vague, meaningless insights. Instead, they got a front-row seat to revelations about your divine purpose, the strength of your spirit, and the incredible journey ahead of you. This was the moment they realized they had crossed a line. Their laughter was replaced with nervous glances and a gnawing sense that they had awakened something powerful. That's the thing about playing with spiritual energy. It doesn't care about your intentions. Whether you come in with sincerity or as a skeptic, it reacts to your presence. And in this case, it exposed a truth they weren't ready to handle. You are not someone to be underestimated. Now they're left shaking, haunted by what they heard and what they now know about you. The psychic reading didn't just give them insight, it flipped the script. They were trying to get a laugh at your expense, but ended up being witnesses to a power they never imagined. They thought they were in control, but they walked right into a spiritual boomerang that hit them harder than they ever expected. And here's the kicker. They'll never see you the same way again. Number 2, validation from the unseen realm. They went to the psychic expecting cheap entertainment, a few vague predictions, maybe a wild story to laugh about over drinks. You were just a name in their little joke. But something strange happened. Instead of a random reading, the psychic delivered a message that struck a nerve. The words weren't empty. They were filled with conviction, truth, and insight. Suddenly, the joke wasn't funny anymore. What they heard was validation of something they already felt but were too proud or blind to admit. You are not ordinary. Maybe they've always sensed your uniqueness but dismissed it out of jealousy or arrogance. Hearing a psychic, a supposedly neutral outsider, confirm your strength, potential, and divine purpose shattered their denial. They weren't ready for that. It's one thing to gossip about someone and convince yourself they're nothing special. It's a whole different experience when someone with no stake in the situation reveals things that are undeniably true. Psychics often tap into energy and intuition, and when they spoke about you, it wasn't just a collection of nice-sounding phrases. It was a mirror reflecting exactly who you are and what you're destined for. And that realization, it left them shook. They walked in hoping to get a laugh, but left questioning everything they thought they knew about you, and even themselves. Psychics have a funny way of confirming truths people desperately try to ignore. And once that truth is spoken, it sticks. They can't unhear it. They can't go back to thinking you're just like everyone else. Now, whether they admit it or not, you've become a force they respect, fear, or both. What was supposed to be a joke became a reality check, and that's the power of truth. It doesn't care if you're ready for it. Once it's revealed, it changes everything. And now you live rent-free in their minds as someone who defied their expectations. Number 3, shifting power dynamics. They thought they were in control, playing games with your name for a laugh. Going to the psychic was supposed to be a power move, a way to feel superior, as if your life was something trivial they could poke fun at. But the universe doesn't work that way. Power doesn't stay in the hands of people who misuse it. And that visit? It flipped the script in a way they never saw coming. What they expected was entertainment, meaningless predictions, and vague talk. What they got was a revelation that knocked the smugness right off their faces. The psychic didn't feed them nonsense. They exposed truths about you that they weren't prepared to hear. Suddenly the tables turned. You weren't the one being dissected or mocked anymore. They were the ones being confronted with their own insecurities. They went in thinking they held the upper hand, but that reading made them realize they were never in control. In fact, they were in way over their heads. The psychic didn't just talk about your strength and potential. They made it clear that you are someone who moves through life with a purpose that can't be diminished by petty games. That kind of realization shifts power dynamics instantly. The joke backfired, and now they're left with a gnawing awareness that their opinions about you were meaningless from the start. That psychic reading didn't just change how they see you, it changed how they see themselves. They realized they had been wasting energy trying to undermine someone who is spiritually untouchable. And that's the thing about power. It always gravitates toward those who stand firm in their truth. When they tried to laugh at you, they only ended up exposing their own weakness. Now they're spectators in your story, watching from the sidelines as you rise higher. They wanted control, but the universe had other plans, and they were left holding nothing but their own shaken egos. Number 4, unintended prophetic revelation. They thought they were walking into a routine psychic session. A few general statements, a bit of mystical mumbo-jumbo, and a laugh on the ride home. But what they heard wasn't just a reading. It was a prophecy. And that's the thing about prophecies. They don't sugarcoat reality, they declare it. The psychic likely revealed things about your future that left them speechless, maybe even rattled. They weren't prepared to hear that you're destined for greatness, that your life carries a purpose far bigger than they imagined. The shock hit them hard because it forced them to confront the possibility that everything they dismissed about you was actually true. They had painted a picture of you in their minds, someone easy to overlook, someone who didn't matter. But this revelation shattered that narrative, and hearing it from a psychic, someone they expected to be neutral, made it even more undeniable. The truth is, prophecies don't just foretell events, they shift perceptions. What the psychic revealed not only altered their understanding of you, but also forced them to reevaluate themselves. Suddenly, they realized they might have been standing in the presence of someone destined for a path they could never touch. Their mockery now seemed foolish, their judgment laughable. And here's the kicker. Prophecies linger. They don't fade from memory. They echo in the mind, replaying at the most unexpected moments. Now, every time they see you, they'll remember what the psychic said. They'll watch your life unfold with a sense of dread, knowing that they underestimated you and are powerless to stop the rise that was foretold. What started as a joke ended with a prophecy that permanently changed the dynamic. They walked in seeking entertainment, but left carrying the weight of a revelation that will haunt them for years to come. And the irony? They became unwilling witnesses to your destiny, a future that's already written and cannot be erased. Number 5. The joke turned spiritual intervention. They walked into that psychic session ready for a joke. Maybe they thought it would be fun to mess around, throw your name into the mix and see what nonsense the psychic would come up with. But the universe has a funny way of turning jokes into divine interventions. What was meant to humiliate you ended up being the spark that elevated you spiritually. And it happened right under their noses. Here's the thing about spiritual energy. It doesn't care about your intentions. Whether you show up for laughs or for guidance, it responds to your presence. The moment they invoked your name in that session, they unknowingly triggered divine forces that had been waiting for the right moment to act. The psychic became the vessel, delivering messages and insights that called out your greatness and purpose. And those words didn't just hang in the room, they set something powerful in motion. Suddenly, the joke wasn't funny anymore. The reading became a catalyst that aligned you with spiritual forces ready to lift you higher, and the more they laughed, the more the universe amplified your path. They thought they were tearing you down, but in reality they were building a platform for your ascension. Divine interventions are rarely subtle, and this one was no exception. Maybe the psychic revealed hidden strengths you hadn't even tapped into yet. Or perhaps they spoke of opportunities and breakthroughs that were on the horizon. Whatever it was, it shifted the spiritual atmosphere around you. And now those who mocked you are left wondering why everything seems to be falling into place for you. Their attempt at humiliation backfired spectacularly. What they set in motion was far beyond their control. You were always chosen. But that psychic session became the turning point that made your divine path undeniable. And now, they have no choice but to watch as you rise higher, wondering how their joke became the very thing that ignited your spiritual elevation. Number 6. Fear of the spiritual consequences. They thought consulting a psychic was harmless fun, a joke at your expense with no strings attached. But spiritual realms don't operate on human rules. Once they meddled with the metaphysical, they opened doors they can't close. And now they're haunted by the consequences of their mockery, sensing that they disrupted something sacred. Psychics don't just pull random words out of thin air, they tap into energies, ancestral wisdom, and spiritual frequencies. By bringing your name into that space with bad intentions, they activated energies that attached to them, lingering long after the session ended. Maybe it started with uneasy dreams or strange coincidences. Perhaps they began feeling a heavy presence, as though something was watching their every move. Whatever it was, it shook them to the core. Spiritual disruptions come with a price. When they laughed at your journey, they underestimated the divine forces protecting you. The universe has a way of balancing energy, and their disrespect created a ripple effect that came back to haunt them. They didn't just consult a psychic, they made themselves targets for spiritual consequences they didn't understand. Now, paranoia has crept in. They may never admit it out loud, but deep down, they feel it. That nagging sense that something is off, that they've tangled with forces far greater than themselves. It's not just guilt, it's spiritual awareness. They know they crossed a line, and they can't shake the fear that their actions set something in motion that can't be undone. The irony is that their fear is rooted in truth. Divine forces don't tolerate mockery, especially when it involves a chosen one. They walked into that psychic session thinking they were clever, but they walked out spiritually marked, and now they're left to face the consequences of their own arrogance, forever haunted by the moment they foolishly played with something sacred. Number 7. Witnessing the activation of your divine blueprint. They expected meaningless chatter from the psychic, a few cryptic statements and a laugh to cap off their joke. But what they got was a front-row seat to the activation of your divine blueprint. Psychics often reveal life trajectories, and when they heard yours, it was undeniable. They suddenly realized they were in the presence of someone chosen by divine order, and their previous ridicule now seemed laughably foolish. The psychic likely spoke of things that only made sense to you and the universe. Perhaps they mentioned talents you haven't fully displayed, or future achievements that seemed impossible to outsiders. But those words carried weight. They weren't just random predictions. They were a blueprint for the extraordinary path you're destined to walk. What shook them was the realization that they'd been blind to your greatness all along. They'd dismissed you, underestimated you, maybe even tried to block your blessings. But now, faced with a clear and undeniable declaration of your purpose, they were forced to confront the truth. And that truth was humbling. The moment someone hears a divine blueprint spoken aloud, it changes the dynamic. You're no longer just a person they can mock or ignore. You become a force of destiny. Their ridicule now looks petty and meaningless in the grand scheme of things. They may have laughed before, but now they're watching closely, wondering when and how everything the psychic said will come to pass. And here's the thing. They won't be able to look away. Every move you make, every step you take toward your divine purpose will be a reminder of that moment. The psychic session became the turning point where your greatness was declared and made visible, even to those who tried to deny it. They witnessed the activation of your divine blueprint, and now they have no choice but to watch it unfold, knowing they played a role in confirming what was already written. Number 8. Psychic readings confirm what their intuition already knew. Deep down, people always know when they're in the presence of someone extraordinary. But admitting that takes humility, a trait that those who mock others rarely possess. They may have dismissed you with jokes and side comments, but in the quiet corners of their minds, they knew there was something different about you. The psychic reading didn't introduce a new idea. It simply gave voice to what they were too insecure to acknowledge. Hearing a psychic describe your path, your spiritual energy, and your potential shook them, not just because it was unexpected, but because it confirmed what they had always sensed. Maybe they had seen glimpses of your inner strength, noticed the way you attract people, or witnessed the doors that seemed to open effortlessly for you. They brushed it off, convincing themselves it was luck or coincidence. But the psychic left no room for doubt. And that's the thing about truth. It demands to be recognized. The psychic articulated your divine purpose in a way that stripped away their denial. Suddenly their jokes seemed hollow. They realized that the person they had mocked was walking in alignment with forces they couldn't even comprehend. The irony is that their insecurity blinded them from seeing your greatness as a gift rather than a threat. They ridiculed what they should have respected. Now, with the psychic's words ringing in their ears, they can no longer hide behind ignorance. They know the truth, and that truth will live rent-free in their minds, forcing them to watch your rise with a mixture of awe and regret. Psychic readings don't create truths, they reveal them. And for those who mock, that revelation is often a harsh reminder of their own small-mindedness. The reading didn't just confirm your uniqueness, it highlighted their failure to recognize it sooner, and that's a weight they'll have to carry. Number 9. Psychic readings shift their role in your life. When they walked into that psychic session, they didn't realize they were about to write themselves into your story. They thought they were just spectators, laughing from the sidelines. But by consulting a psychic about you, they unintentionally cast themselves in a role they didn't expect, the antagonists in your journey. And the universe, being what it is, made sure they stayed there. Psychics don't just reveal information, they expose dynamics and life trajectories. The moment your name came up, the energy shifted. Suddenly, they weren't just random people in your orbit, they became characters in your story, defined by their choice to mock what they didn't understand. That reading cemented their position as either spectators or footnotes in your rising narrative. The psychic likely spoke of your potential, your spiritual power, and the path you're destined to walk. Hearing those words forced them to confront the fact that they had played a negative role in your journey. Maybe they had doubted you, spread gossip, or tried to undermine your confidence. Whatever their actions were, the reading highlighted their pettiness in contrast to your divine purpose. And here's the kicker. Once someone steps into that antagonist role, it's hard to get out. The universe has a way of keeping people exactly where they've positioned themselves. Now, they're stuck watching your growth from the sidelines, aware that they contributed nothing but negativity to your story. They could have chosen to be supporters, allies, or even friends, but their actions sealed their fate as bystanders at best and obstacles at worst. The psychic reading didn't just reveal your greatness, it shifted the entire dynamic. They went from being irrelevant in your life to being defined by their choice to mock you. And now, as you rise higher, they're left with nothing but the bitter realization that they played themselves into a role they can't escape. Number 10. The truth cuts like a blade. Ego is a fragile thing. It thrives on illusions and false narratives that people build to protect themselves from uncomfortable truths. When they went to that psychic session, their egos were fully intact, bolstered by the belief that they had you figured out. But hearing the psychic speak about your spiritual greatness was like a blade slicing through those delusions. The truth didn't just land, it cut deep. They expected vague statements and entertainment, but instead, they were confronted with undeniable revelations about your strength, purpose, and destiny. The psychic didn't just describe you, they exposed the profound energy you carry and the divine path you're walking. And that was a truth their egos weren't prepared to handle. The problem with hearing a truth that contradicts your ego-driven perceptions is that it forces you to confront your own inadequacies. They had likely convinced themselves that you were insignificant or easy to dismiss. Maybe they even felt superior to you, but the psychic shattered that illusion, leaving them face to face with the reality that you are someone chosen, someone destined for greatness. And that realization? It's a bitter pill to swallow. The truth doesn't just sit quietly in the background, it demands attention. Every time they see you, they'll remember what the psychic said. Every step you take toward your destiny will be a reminder of that moment when their ego was cut down by an undeniable truth. The irony is that they went in seeking entertainment and left carrying a wound they can't heal. The psychic didn't just read your future, they exposed the lies they had told themselves about you. And now those words will echo in their minds, a constant reminder that the truth cuts deeper than any joke ever could. Number 11. They became spiritually entangled. When they consulted that psychic about you, they probably thought it was a one-and-done situation. Ask a few questions, hear a few answers, and walk away like nothing happened. But that's not how spiritual energy works. The moment they invoked your name in that reading, they became energetically entangled with your journey. And now, whether they like it or not, they're tied to your ascension. Spiritual connections aren't fleeting, they leave energetic imprints. By bringing your name into that psychic session, they created a bond that lingers in the unseen realms. It's like casting a thread that ties them to your path. And here's where it gets interesting. As you rise and step fully into your divine purpose, that thread pulls them along, forcing them to witness your growth. At first, they may have brushed it off, thinking it was all just a joke. But over time, they began to feel it, the weight of that entanglement. Maybe it showed up as sudden thoughts about you they couldn't shake or an unexplainable urge to check up on your life. Whatever form it took, it became clear that they couldn't just walk away from that moment. The universe has a way of turning mockery into accountability. By trying to make a joke out of your journey, they inadvertently placed themselves in a position where they have to witness your rise firsthand. And that's not an easy thing to do when they were hoping to see you fail. Now they're stuck on the sidelines, spiritually entangled and unable to look away. Every success you achieve, every step you take toward your destiny, tugs at that thread, reminding them of the moment they foolishly tied themselves to your greatness. And the irony, they can never undo it. Their attempt to mock you became the very thing that ensured they'd never be free from your rising narrative. Number 12. The joke backfired, turning you into a legend in their minds. They walked into that psychic reading looking for a laugh, thinking your name was nothing more than a punchline to their little joke. But life has a funny way of flipping the script. What was supposed to be a fleeting moment of amusement turned into a revelation that they can't stop replaying in their minds. Instead of fading into obscurity, you became a legend, someone they admire, fear, or perhaps both. The psychic likely shared truths about your potential, your purpose, and the divine forces that guide your life. Those revelations weren't just intriguing, they were unforgettable. And now, every time they think about you, those words echo in their minds. It's no longer just about who you are today, but who you're becoming. They realize they've witnessed the early stages of a story that's only going to get more remarkable. The backfire was immediate and relentless. They went from dismissing you to being captivated by the very thought of you. Their laughter transformed into fascination, then into obsession. They may not admit it out loud, but they can't stop wondering how and when the things the psychic said will come to pass. Every move you make feels like a confirmation of that reading, and it eats at them. And here's the irony. They played themselves. Their attempt to mock you became the very thing that cemented your significance in their minds. They could have walked away with nothing, but instead, they left with a permanent reminder of your greatness. Now you live rent-free in their thoughts, not as the person they once dismissed, but as a living legend whose story they feel compelled to follow. The psychic session may have ended, but its impact will linger for years, turning you into a figure they can never forget, and perhaps even someone they secretly admire. Number 13. Your divine presence is now a source of their insecurity. Before the psychic reading, they likely felt confident in their perception of you. You were just another person in their world, someone they could dismiss, judge, or mock without a second thought. But that reading changed everything. The psychic's insights unveiled the divine energy you carry, and suddenly you became more than just a person. You became a spiritual force, and that realization shook them to their core. Now, they're constantly measuring themselves against your spiritual stature, even if they don't fully understand why. It's not just about material success or external achievements, it's about presence. The psychic revealed something about you that made them see themselves differently. And what they saw wasn't flattering. The joke they made at your expense was never really about you. It was a reflection of their own insecurities, their need to feel superior to someone who intimidates them. But after hearing the psychic speak, that insecurity was laid bare. They realized that you're operating on a higher frequency, aligned with a purpose that they can't touch. And that knowledge is unsettling. Insecurity is a persistent thing. It shows up in subtle ways: envy, resentment, or an inexplicable need to prove oneself. They may find themselves fixating on your life, wondering why things seem to fall into place for you. They might even try to mimic your energy, hoping to capture a piece of what makes you unique. But the truth is, your divine presence is something they can never replicate. The irony is that their attempt to mock you only amplified their awareness of your greatness. They wanted to tear you down, but instead, they exposed their own inferiority complex. And now they're left grappling with a truth they can't unsee. You're walking in divine purpose, and their insecurities will never be enough to diminish that. Number 14. Psychics speak what the universe ordains. Psychic readings aren't random musings. They're messages from the universe. When they consulted the psychic about you, they expected entertainment, not enlightenment. But the universe had other plans. What they heard wasn't just a series of predictions, it was a divine message ordained specifically for that moment. And the most ironic part, their mockery was the very vessel that amplified your destiny. The psychic didn't just speak words, they spoke truth. And that truth carried the weight of universal intention. It wasn't about what they wanted to hear. It was about what they needed to hear. The reading declared your greatness, your divine path, and the impact you're destined to have. And once spoken, those words carried a power that couldn't be taken back. They probably left that session rattled, unable to shake the feeling that they had stumbled into something far bigger than themselves. The universe doesn't play games. It uses every moment, even the foolish ones, to bring clarity and purpose. By consulting the psychic, They inadvertently aligned themselves with the process of your ascension. What was meant to be a joke became a declaration of your spiritual importance. Now, they're grappling with a truth they can't unhear. The universe exposed their mockery for what it was, insecurity and ignorance. But more importantly, it used that moment to affirm your path and solidify your purpose. And that affirmation didn't just happen in front of the psychic, it happened in front of them. The joke they intended to make at your expense became a divine lesson that they can't escape. Every time they see you, they'll remember that reading and the undeniable truth it revealed. The universe spoke, and its words have etched themselves into their consciousness. And now, they must live with the knowledge that your rise was never a coincidence. It was ordained. The joke was never just a joke. What started as a careless attempt to mock or belittle you backfired in ways they never saw coming. Consulting a psychic about you turned into a spiritual awakening, one that revealed truths they were too proud to admit and too shaken to forget. They expected entertainment but left with revelations that challenged their perception of reality and, most importantly, their understanding of who you are. In their misguided attempt to diminish you, they became witnesses to your divine purpose. The psychic's words cut through their ego, exposing the depth of your greatness. What was once amusement turned into obsession, fascination, and, for some, regret. Spiritually entangled and unable to walk away, they've been forced into a front-row seat to watch your rise, something they now realize they are powerless to stop. Their laughter may have echoed for a moment, but the truth has a resonance that never fades. The universe used their mockery as a vessel to amplify your destiny. What they heard wasn't random, it was ordained, and now they're left grappling with a reality they can't unhear, and a future where your greatness is no longer up for debate. But here's the most remarkable part. This story was never really about them. It's about you, your divine path, your resilience, and the forces working in your favor. Their opinions, jokes, or insecurities hold no weight against the truth that was revealed. You are chosen, destined, and walking in alignment with something far greater than their comprehension. So let them shake, obsess, and carry the weight of that psychic session. That moment wasn't a setback, it was a prophecy fulfilled, a divine turning point in your journey. And as you continue to rise, the only thing they can do is watch, knowing deep down that they played a part in amplifying your legend. You owe them no explanation, no reaction, only your continued rise. And that in itself is the most poetic ending of all. If you've made it this far, you're clearly tuned into something much deeper than the surface level. And that's exactly what we're all about here. If you're ready to continue diving into the revelations, the insights, and the truths that will keep you on the path to greatness, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on what's coming next. Trust me, you'll want to be a part of this journey. So subscribe, stay tuned, and let's keep uncovering the mysteries that surround us. This is just the beginning, and we're so glad you're here for it. Let's rise together. God bless you.